So I think the next one, do good men exist? So there's just so much to that.
That was by Beat.
Beats with the Z _EK on Instagram. You sent this one through, so thank you so much for doing that. Do good men exist? Emil, do they, or are all of us assholes?
Jeez,
complete assholes.
I think it's an interesting question because it's so wide. Do good men exist? Of course, good men exist, but
do you want good men to exist?
Yeah, it's what is your belief behind that? Because if I've been hurt, maybe it's my father. Maybe it's your father. Her name's Beta. Beta, maybe it's your father that you don't have a good relationship with. Maybe it's a boyfriend that left you or was really awful to you. And then you've had a few of those boyfriends and it started from somewhere and everything's a pattern. So maybe your belief now is that there's no good men out there. So now if that's your belief, then what's going to happen is that you're constantly going to look for faults in men because something burned you a long time ago. And this is what we can do as human beings is like we have an experience and then we name that experience and we agree that that's it. Because if I agree that that's my truth, then I'm going to avoid getting hurt again. I don't want to feel that pain. So what happens? We go around and we look for people and deep down we want to be loved, but deep down there's something that has not been healed yet. And then we go outside and we point and we say, it's like a generalization. You know, do good men exist? Of course there's good men out there. Of course there's men that love themselves. Of course there's men that can emotionally express. But if we are constantly labeling and generalizing and putting the whole thing, it's like, it's not fair. It's not fair to you because you're going to literally always get what you look for.
Yeah. Well, that narrative is just going to continually play out and it can fall back onto like unhealthy expectations as well. But again, we Beats _EK again, like there's so many variables that go into, you know, your personal experiences. So we don't know it personally, but for a lot of women, sometimes they've had, the narrative is that their mother has been the hero archetype. And it's sometimes, and this is the scary thing about sometimes when people talk shit about their spouse in a breakup and when there's a kid involved is, the narrative becomes that my mum said all men are the same. No men are good. And because your mum carries the hero archetype and you look up to him so much, having that be disproved destroys a little bit of the hero archetype that your mother wasn't right in a sense, right? So it's like, my hero in my life has said that there's no good men. I need to fulfill that out so they're right on that topic. For them to be not right on that topic would be too hard to realize that maybe they weren't right on that. So women will some, and again it's some given certain circumstances, want to play that narrative out. Because it supports the hero archetype of which they built around their mother. They don't actually want to find a good man because it contradicts that.
Contradicts belief. And if I do find a good man, then what's the story? We always get something from our story.
Well, the story wasn't right, and that aspect around what I was led to believe wasn't true. But that also then can affect some men. In a sense where my parents had split up, but my mother never talked shit about my dad, right?
Never.
No, she didn't. She was really good in that sense where she just didn't really talk much about anything. And we became aware over time maybe there was some things that maybe were not admirable at all, right? And eventually like that, and I think in a small sense, and there's no blame, like my mum didn't do this for me. It's like I adopted it from just what I've kind of realized was that sometimes when the narrative has been you're a son and your mum's the hero archetype, and she is to me.
Yeah.
And you then worry that you're going to you're going to fuck someone over like you felt like maybe your mum was. And you live in this perpetual state of not being fearful of you getting hurt, but you're the one that's going to do the hurting.
So what I'm hearing is you're saying like, if you have a story about your father, which is not good, right? Because
it's not that anymore, but at one point it might have been that.
Yeah. Then what's the fear?
Well, it turns into, well, I don't want to manifest that again. I don't want, like, am I going to be just as bad? And then the fear turns into not trying to find a good woman. It's like not ending up being someone that hurts a good woman.
Yeah.
Right. So then I get scared.
But like, deep down, it's like, I have a fear that I want to turn out like my dad. And I hear it so many times. I don't want to turn out like my dad. I don't want to turn out like my mum. My God, if I turn out like my mum, that would be the worst. And that's where the healing is. That's the funny thing. Yeah.
And it's like, it's all unconscious. Like, this is the thing. Like, I got so many great traits from my dad. And it's not so much like not wanting to be like my dad. It's more like some of the things that maybe played out when you're young and you don't have, and I've done a lot of work around it. So I love my dad. My dad's, he's a good man. Like, I appreciate everything he's been able to do and everything. So I don't have a bad sort of viewpoint towards him. I've done a lot of work around that. But I think, for a long time, for men that have been afraid of that, they've spent their whole life trying to prove that not right. Then I've looked at it myself as like, again, I was single for such a long time, and maybe one of the big things was like, I'm more concerned about hurting someone than being hurt myself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, men have been known to do this. And it's like now, but the fear becomes, am I going to just continue on the same flow of wounding? Because he didn't do things or whatever out of nowhere. He got them from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that he's not to blame. I don't blame him in the slightest for that. But then when it's you, it's a lot harder to allow yourself that affordability, right? So again, it's like, can we trust? Like, I was just like, can I trust myself to be better? And then for some women, it's like, I don't actually want to find a good man because it just doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative. So, but there are good men out there. But again, you're not going to find a man that's everything that you. It's you can write if you're going to write a massive list of the things you want in a man, you're going to have to write a whole list next to it of the polar opposites, because they're going to display some of that in some retrospect, in hopefully in a lot of small doses. But there's definitely,
I mean, it's also going, well, if I want a good man, it's going to be kind, generous, compassionate, open-minded, thoughtful. It's like, am I showing up like that? It's like, you want this, but how are you showing up like that? And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I want a man that's accepting, but I'm not being accepting because I'm like judging every man for his fault, right? So it's like we mirror shit. And this is why we need to be really conscious. And I can't believe I just said that word, but conscious of our own thought pattern and how we point, because when we are pointing, there's three fingers pointing back. It's like, if everything's wrong with them, how am I showing up? I'm showing up as judgmental then. So what's the healing I need to do then? If I can't find a good man, it's like, where do I not accept parts of myself? Where did I reject myself? And like I said, it comes back to, there must have been something that happened. Either it was your father, it was your grandfather, it was a male figure that disappointed you. And then from that disappointment, you decided that it's the same. Yeah, they're all the same.
And you want that to, you valued that being the case more than that actually finding a good man.
And I feel like what she actually needs is deep, like, acceptance, deep love for herself. And from that part, like, check into, like, what are the things you've been denying about yourself? What are the things that you haven't allowed people to see? What are the things you're ashamed about? Because that's where she's going to get, I reckon, her healing. Then she can go out and go, okay, cool, I'm open to that. And it's going to be scary. Like, there's so many, like, I've coached so many clients where they're like, okay, I'm ready to find my man now. And that's scary for people. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to show up and go, hey, my heart's open this time. Because there's risk. There's risk of rejection. There's risk of getting disappointed again. There's risk of like your expectations on someone else going, I want you to show up like this. And if you don't show up like that, that's going to trigger that pain spot.
Yeah. And I think it's just, it can be safe to like, and I know for me, sometimes when stuff gets a little bit difficult, it's like, it's like you just go to look to find like your escape route. It's like, where can I find all your flaws? I'm going to focus on them. They're going to give me enough to validate not having you in my life anymore, because I don't want to have to go through this level of growth. Right. And it's like, I've seen myself in my head do that and have to really go, you're doing it again.
We're so good at it.
You're doing it again, man.
I heard this once, the moment you start judging it or judging the person, that's giving you permission to separate. Because if I can separate, and I say, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're showing up like this.
It's easy to go, it's your fault.
It's easy to point.
Why'd you break up? Well, he was a fucking...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, they were.
And you start looking at, I'm the same. I was so good at finding faults. Yeah, she's like this and she does this and I don't like the way she does that. And then my mind will go off and have a little story and keep playing it and replaying it. And it's like this movie going on.
And I think Disney, I think media and Disney has like completely fucked up everyone's perspective of like how relationships would be. It's like this unicorn that everyone's waiting for, where it's like, it's just like amazing all the time. It's like you're going to be waiting a long time.